Peace family, Vie Darling, the cosmic queen and your intergalactic interpreter. And I know it's been a little minute since my last reading, but I just want to give y'all a little insight into what we can expect for the upcoming week. 23:33 on the clock, and I think that's significant. 22 on the timer, so you already know what it is. What I'm hearing from the ethers is, don't say what you're gonna do, say what you already did. And I'm hearing you're not the boss of me. Like, it's the theme song to Malcolm in the Middle, like, you're not the boss of me now, you're not the boss of me now, you're not the boss of me now, and you're not so big. And at the end it goes, life is unfair. And I think that, like, powers and principalities collapsing, like powers and principalities that have been ruling over your life, that have been causing you so much just like distress, destruction, all that shit is collapsing. And like, whatever you're experiencing right now that might feel troublesome or concerning, worrisome, anything like that in terms of like spiritual warfare, that's all just like residual energy leaving your body, leaving your auric field, your 𝗪ᱽ fields, because for those of us who are, you know, those of us who are chosen ones, then you probably have broken free of that karmic cycle that came to an end. We just had the Taurus full moon, which wraps up a cycle, with the planet of Pluto having moved into the sign of Aquarius. It was here earlier in the year, but when it went retrograde, it moved back into Capricorn. I think that it was in Capricorn at like 28 degrees and it went back as far as 28 degrees. I don't think it made it to 27 degrees, but then it was like between 28 degrees and 29 degrees the entire time that it was back in Capricorn, which was, I want to say, for like 6 months maybe, because I do feel like it was in the sign of Aquarius for like 3 months at the beginning of the summer. It definitely was, and then it was like 6 months where it wasn't, so, or when it was back in Capricorn. Now that it's back in Aquarius, I can say for myself, I do feel like things felt way better when Pluto was in Aquarius, and I could not wait. Oh my goodness, I notoriously, like, I like do astrology professionally, and I was writing insights I have written daily insights for a text app for over a year now. So I have literally pulled the astrology for every single day from September 2023 until like now, basically. And notoriously, I did not fucking like Pluto being in the sign of Aquarius. I mean, Capricorn, I really did not like it. And here's why. Capricorn relates to structures. It relates to tradition. It relates to the bones. And so if you think about like existing in a paradigm, existing in a structure, or if you think about like a cell, if you will, where I talk about like Pisces being like the plasma of a cell, or the like ethereal energy being the plasma of a cell, I would say that the cell wall or the cell lining that gives it its shape and form would be more so Capricorn. Okay, it gives form, it directs like energy, if you will. If you also think of like a water slide, for instance, like if you just had water shooting off, it'd be going every which way, right? But when you have a water slide, like, it's being guided in a certain direction, and you can make it go this way and you can make it go that way. And it specifically in terms of time, because Saturn refers to time. It 0505 on the timer. Capricorn specifically is about the past. So we're working with past structures. And in this specific case, we're talking about power structures and power dynamics, okay? People talk about capitalism being associated with Capricorn. Well, before capitalism existed, it wasn't. You know what I mean? So like that is just within the framework of colonialism. A lot of things that people associate with Capricorn has to do with colonialism, like, oh my God, it's so daddy. But for me, like, I come from a very matriarchal family. They're still very misogynistic, but it's a matriarchal family. So to me, Capricorn energy is like auntie energy. It is not daddy energy. And also, Capricorn is an earth sign, so it's a feminine sign. I really don't understand where people get the quote unquote daddy energy from, but I think just the idea of something that's dominant and like, you know, disciplinary, people associate with fathers, although I would say from everything that I've witnessed of families coming from all walks of life, it's actually usually the mother. That is like the more disciplinary party, but neither here nor there. Pluto in Capricorn deadass felt like fighting for my fucking life. Like, it really, I'm not even fucking playing. Like, it felt like fighting for my life. Because it was just karmic test after karmic test. You have to understand that the last quarter of the zodiac is like, these are the crone energies. So they're very powerful, very mystical, very, very related to karma. And most of them are ruled by transpersonal planets or placements rather than personal placements. So that's going to be Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Aquarius. And then we start the whole cycle over again. If you don't know what I mean about like Pisces actually being 0, there are actually like 13 signs. I know this is controversial, but it's 0 through 12 instead of 1 through 13 because Pisces is actually 0. It's a mirror, it's a 0 point. But if you want to get into the esoterics of that, we're not going to talk about that here on TikTok right now. I would encourage you to subscribe to my newsletter, the channel, I changed it. It's the Aetherium, which is linked in my bio, because we deep dive into the mysteries, like probably deeper than most of y'all have ever gone with a spiritualist online. But I would definitely encourage you to check it out. You can get a 7-day free trial and see if it's something that you vibe with. And if not, that's cool too. 0011 on the timer. I'm going to try to keep it quick for y'all, but if I go over, you can go watch the rest of it on YouTube, which is where I will post it if I end up having to make a whole video. But essentially he was talking about how Pluto has moved into the sign of Aquarius, and this is a really big deal because it has to do with karma, karmic cycles. Saturn is the ancient planetary ruler of Aquarius. Saturn is the ruler of time. It's also the ruler of karma. So it's deeply implicated with the planet Mars, which is the planet of action. Karma is the Sanskrit word for action. And Mars is actually the ancient planetary ruler of Scorpio. The modern planetary ruler is Pluto. So there's a lot of like interwoven energy here, but even beyond that, if I'm not mistaken, which I'm probably not, Uranus is in the sign of Taurus right now. And we just had, if you're watching this when I'm recording and uploading it, it's a timeless energy read regardless of when you're watching it, but If you're watching it when I'm recording it, we just had the Taurus full moon because it's Scorpio season. And like I said, Pluto is the modern planetary ruler of the sign of Scorpio. On the 30th of November, the sun is going to move into out of the constellation of Scorpius and into the constellation of 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝗃 or 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝗃. I don't know how the fuck you say it, but essentially it's going to be there, I think, until December 17th, and then the sun is going to move into the constellation of Sagittarius. 222 on the timer. Mind you, Sagittarius is actually aligned, the constellation of Sagittarius is aligned with the galactic center. So that has a lot to do with the reason why Sagittarius is related to higher vibrational, higher dimensional, higher consciousness, wisdom, and understanding, understanding, overstanding, if you will. It has to do with higher education, it has to do with philosophy, and all those lofty ideas and ideals, because Sagittarius is aligned with the galactic center. So it is essentially the gateway to all of this higher vibrational information, if you will. We don't need to get into the quantum physics of why that actually is not as quote unquote, I don't use the term woo-woo because it's extremely anti-indigenous, but for those of you who do, that. So let me get into what's happening this week, because the first thing that I channeled was the theme song to Malcolm in the Middle, and You're Not the Boss of Me, and also I channeled like, don't say what you're gonna do, say what you already did. And I also channeled, I didn't say this in part one, but I also channeled when a lot of women rappers say this, and I think it's just like, it's funny because it's like poignant in a way that I think that a lot of people miss. They say, I do what I want, you do what you're told, or like, you do what you have to do. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the reason why these women are in the positions that they are in is because they do what they want instead of doing what is projected upon them. Pluto now having moved into the sign of Aquarius, finally, after it was retrograde in Capricorn for many, many months during this year, and with the Taurus full moon in Scorpio, 432 on the timer. I'm hearing it's only a matter of time. I'm hearing get ready, bitch. It's only a matter of time. 0440, yo. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. 444 on the fucking timer, bro. Ancestors are here. Listen, if you're feeling worn out, if you're feeling exhausted, I need you to know, I'm hearing like, if you're feeling unprotected, 456 on the timer. If you're feeling unprotected, it's always darkest before the dawn, okay? It's always most tumultuous before the dawn. It's likely that you've been going through a lot of like chaos in the past couple of weeks, especially maybe the past 7 days. You may have felt like you were experiencing extreme spiritual warfare. If you felt like you were going through a lot of spiritual warfare, it actually may have been a lot of purging. So essentially, like, a lot of the spiritual detritus and the karma that has been like in your energy body, in your spiritual body, like being flushed out by this higher vibrational energy that's coming in as we transition closer and closer to passing that threshold of the Sagittarius gate and the really 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝗃 gate or 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝗃 gate or whatever. Some signs are actually portals. They're gateways to energy, and that's essentially what we get when we're dealing with these particular signs. And also as it relates to the sign of Pisces, which is why I say that like it's 0 through 12, not 1 through 13, when you actually include 𝗪𝗪𝗁𝗃. If you've been doing the work instead of being karmic, if you've been answering the call, if you've been stepping up to the plate, to break these generational curses that have been over your family of origin, your tribe, your ethnic group, you know, the community that you were born into. We've talked about this. Not all of our karma is our karma. Not all of our karma is our family's karma. You take on the karma of the collective that you manifest into, which also includes the town that you're born in. You know, like any group that you attach yourself to, you take on their karma as long as you're still integrated with them. 0707. And this is a really important note, because these relationships that you've been divesting from, that you've been breaking free from, you may have felt really agitated around these relationships recently. It may have been on your mind heavy. You may have been like really obsessive about these relationships that were toxic, quite frankly. And it's not necessarily that the people themselves were toxic, rather the dynamic was toxic. And ultimately, if you're in a toxic dynamic, you are also infected by the toxicity of what's going on. You're like participating in it, you're also sick. So good for you. If you are someone that I am referring to, good for you for extricating yourself and for doing the healing work. 0000 on the clock. We are entering into a new chapter of our experience, our existence is actually what I'm picking up. I'm hearing that song from High School Musical where they're like, we're soaring, we're flying, we're breaking free. I don't know. I always really hated High School Musical, so I don't know what that song is called, but that song, that's you. And it's making me also think about like Aladdin and A Whole New World. We're at 8 minutes and 38 seconds. We're going to take this to YouTube, and I'll see you there. And even outside of YouTube, I'm going to do a deeper, more esoteric dive on my Substack newsletter, The Mysteries, so you should definitely subscribe. The link is in my bio, and I will also see you there. You are entitled to a 7-day free trial to see if it's something that you vibe with before subscribing to the paid tier of the membership. And I suggest you take great advantage of that. If you want a personal session with me, you can book through my Etsy. And if this is where we leave you, happy hunting. I love you all truly and dearly, and I will see you very soon. Peace, family. If you are migrating over here from TikTok, welcome. Maybe you should follow, like, subscribe. What do we say on YouTube? Like, comment, subscribe, whatever. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you just want to get this cosmic tea, that's also cool. But yeah, let's get deeper into this message. So I picked up, like, you do what you have to do. I do what I want, you do what you have to do. So basically, this is for people who have basically been, like, living under the autocratic power of another. You may have grown up in a situation where, like, your parent may have been, or your caregiver, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a parent, could have been, like, super strict. I'm picking up that some of you went to, like, boarding school, and so, like, you weren't with your parent, and you may have gone to, like, some of you may have gone to, like, military boarding school or boarding school for kids who were, like, troubled, because you were getting into a lot of trouble, but instead of asking you why you were, like, acting out, your parents just, like, were like, oh, like, we don't know what to do with you, we're gonna send you away. And that, like, a lot of people, I think, right now are, like, healing trauma around, like, feeling abandoned, and also, like, trauma regarding feeling abandoned has to do with, you know, rejection. So like rejection sensitivity. You may be experiencing a lot of like that kicking up for you right now, and remembering all of these times where you felt like super rejected, where you felt like super abandoned. Some of you may have like, you didn't even know that you were going to this boarding school or whatever, but like they just like dropped you off at the boarding school and were like, okay, you're gonna live here now for the year. Or it may have been like a Paris Hilton situation where she was like abducted from her house. Her parents knew it was gonna happen, but she didn't know, which is just like, how crazy are you? Like, how fucking crazy are you to think that you're not gonna scar someone for life by staging an abduction to take them, they don't know what the fuck is going on, to take them to somewhere they don't know where they are, they don't know who these people are. Like, that is so insane that people think that that is gonna help like your child get better. And I know that 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗂𝗪 also had that experience, I think like after she went on like Dr. Phil and Bad Baby or whatever her name is, and she went on Dr. Phil, and then she went to that school that Paris Hilton went to, and both of them experienced child mistreatment is the word that we're going to use, because censorship is just so crazy on these apps these days. And something that's also coming through to say is like, yeah, like the internet sucks these days because of net neutrality, and like all of the things that we were trying to escape that were in like the social world, in the real world, like by going on the internet, they just brought that shit to the internet, and that's why it sucks these days. Spirit is saying that if you've been looking for like new relationships to cultivate, and you like, if your friends, if the only people that you feel like actually connected to are like spread out all over the country or all over the world, and the only way that you can connect with them is through the internet, and you might feel like afraid that you're never gonna meet people who understand you in person and have these kinds of relationships in like in your quote unquote real life, like offline. Spirit is saying don't worry about that, because like your soul tribe is coming in, and you're not gonna be alone anymore. You're not gonna feel alone anymore, and you're gonna feel like super supported by these new relationships that you are gonna be cultivating. And Spirit's also saying you've already been cultivating these new relationships by doing the work on yourself that's necessary for you to be able to like actually sustain them long term, which before you went through this like process, this dark night of the soul, this transformation, you weren't able to like, I'm hearing Phoenix Force. And if you know anything about the Phoenix Force is a force in the galaxy that it's like a sentient energy essentially, and it had to find a home, it had to find a body, and because it's so powerful, like it had to find a really powerful body. And this is from X-Men. So Jean Grey is the most powerful psychic / telepath on the planet. I think that there are like 5 levels, and she's the only one who's level 5. And so the Phoenix Force finds her, and it like integrates into her body, and it grafts to her body. And it's so powerful that like it actually kills her. Shit. I shouldn't have said that word on online because now I'm going to get in trouble for just speaking normal English. Anyway, it actually like unalives her, and then it like brings her back to life. Like it, I'm pretty sure, I know in the original movies, I don't remember if this happened in the comics. I want to say it did, but I don't remember. But her body like explodes basically. It's like torn apart by the Phoenix Force, and then it like reintegrates her. In the films, she ends up like, Scott Summers is her boyfriend. I don't think he's her husband. He's her boyfriend, and he was actually her boyfriend in the comics as well. But she ends up accidentally unaliving him with the Phoenix Force in her body, because like she can't really control it, but at the same time she doesn't even really feel bad because she's like being controlled by the Phoenix Force. And this all makes me think about 𝗂𝗲 and how like she is sent to like, she is about like death and rebirth, and she arrives because Durga, the goddess Durga, is like fighting for her life against these demons. The specific demon I think is called 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, and every time his blood hits the ground, like I think it's like 5 new demons spring from his blood, and all of the other gods cannot like, they can't end him. You know, all of the male gods, I think, or all of the masculine gods like try, but they can't. And like Durga is the supreme protector, and she's fighting so hard. She's like fighting like crazy. And then it gets so intense that 𝗂𝗲 springs from her forehead, and 𝗂𝗲 ends up destroying him, but she develops bloodlust and she just goes on a rampage, you know, ending people indiscriminately. And it isn't until her counterpart Shiva lies down on the ground and she steps on him that she finally stops. This is also like the story of 𝗂𝗪𝗪, who is like basically Hathor, incarnates, she like comes down to earth as 𝗂𝗪𝗪, and for the same purposes, to rid the world of evil. And I'm hearing like the opening credits of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but she comes down to rid the world of evil. So you might be someone who identifies with like being an exorcist, being a demon slayer. You might feel like an affinity towards like vampires, not like necessarily, well, yeah, definitely interested in vampires, but also maybe an affinity towards vampires, like just like very fascinated and obsessed with learning about them so that you can like destroy them because you might be a vampire hunter. But yeah, you might have a lot of encounters with like narcissists and people who are frankly sociopathic, and you see right through them, where everybody else like thinks, oh my god, like that person's so nice, that person's so cool. Like you see them through them immediately. And oftentimes you may have been like, oh, like why is this person like just, why does this person just like not like me? I didn't even do anything to them, like whatever. And it's because they know that you can see them. Even if you're choosing not to, even if you're distracted by some other bullshit, they know that you can see them, and it agitates them and it irritates them. It reminds me of this guy on TikTok called the Nameless Narcissist. He talked about why a lot of narcissists are afraid of people who are on the autism spectrum. And it's because he's like, as a narcissist, you can't get a read on them, but they like can get a read on you. But also, like, I think as somebody who is diagnosed on the spectrum since I was 4 years old, I grew up in a narcissistic family. I have dated narcissistic people, and I don't do that anymore because I have recovered and come into my sovereignty. I can say this much: everybody who's ever tried to like cultivate a narcissistic codependent relationship with me, I have broken their morale completely. Like, they always end up fucking crying, and I don't even do anything to them. I'm just like being myself and not tolerating. Like, I'm not gonna go along with lies. I'm not gonna go along with lies. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm just gonna be honest and keep it real because that's all that I can do. And, you know, they don't like that. And the other thing is, like, once one person starts doing that, it gives everybody else the dangerous idea that they should do that. That's a lot of how narcissists also feel. And narcissists are parasites. They're parasites. And this is why we don't need to be afraid of narcissists. They're fucking weak. They're the weakest fucking links, bro. Like, you can make a narcissist cry so easily. They might not cry in front of you, but they're gonna go home. They're gonna sit in their car and they're gonna cry like their fucking brains out. And then they're gonna be like, they're gonna come and act like so superior to everyone. Meanwhile, they hate the fuck out of themselves. Like, honestly, do not fear narcissists. You should really just feel bad for them because they are some of the saddest, frankly, most pathetic people walking among us. And I genuinely, I feel so bad for them. Also because I'm not in proximity to them anymore. I don't have any relationships with narcissists. I've quit jobs before because of narcissistic bosses. You know what I mean? Like, I had to work with some narcissistic girls in my BFA program. And as soon as we fucking graduated, I blocked them on everything. And yeah, I don't care. Like, I don't tolerate that shit in my life. And I'm pretty fucking happy as far as let things go. But because I don't have to engage with them actively, I'm able to have pity for them. But if I had to engage with them, I would probably hate them. And I do my best to not experience hate. I do my best to channel unconditional love as much as possible. And so in order for me to do that, I can't be in relation to abusers, whether or not it's because they're like mentally ill, which they are, or emotionally ill, which they are. I'm not interested. Go latch on to somebody else, but I'm not a host for your parasitic bullshit. And vampires are parasites, okay? The thing about narcissists and people on the narcissistic spectrum is that, like, it's actually a psychopathic spectrum. They don't have a relationship to the light, and their heart light is turned off. That's why they don't experience empathy. It is usually, well, it's always because of trauma that happened in their childhood. They turn their heart light off and they cannot, and I just saw 543 on the timer. They can't experience empathy the same way that normal people can. And for this reason, they have to latch on to people whose heart light is on, because you can't really survive with your heart light off, which is why, trigger warning, but so many of them experience SI. So many of them experience SI because they're literally living some of the worst lives imaginable. So they find people who are very empathetic and have their heart lights on. A lot of people who are diagnosed on the spectrum or think that they're on the spectrum, autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, sensory processing disorder, all of these are predicated upon being a highly sensitive person.
your neurological system, your nervous system is more finely attuned than a quote unquote neurotypical person, which means you literally feel more and experience more than neurotypical people do, which is why we react differently, and our brains and our bodies react to external stimuli in different ways for each of us personally. And so you're literally feeling more, and if your heart rate hasn't been turned off, you'd be surprised by how many people who have those diagnoses, who are also, that they have the comorbidity of narcissistic personality disorder or antisocial personality disorder or borderline personality disorder, because they're dysregulated. Their nervous system is dysregulated and they don't have effective coping mechanisms. And at some point in their childhood, they realized it might just be easier for them to turn their heart light off subconsciously. No child sits there and thinks, oh, I'm gonna not feel anything for anybody ever again. You know, which reminds me of Wednesday. Every 6 months I rewatch Wednesday. So I've seen the entire show like 6 times in the past 2 years since it came out. But yeah, she says that she intentionally shut her heart rate off, and Wednesday's like archetypally Scorpio energy, but it's obvious that that's not true. It's obvious that she's just so afraid of rejection and losing love because it will hurt too badly. And she has to learn how to cope with those intense feelings that she wants to avoid, that she does not want to experience. And some of us never learn how. You know what I mean? And honestly, I know for myself, when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, it was really cool to be quote unquote heartless and like nonchalant and not care about anything and not feel anything and just be like an emotional fucking zombie. And we were all so fucking depressed and unwell. Like, it was not, that was like Tumblr core. That was like Tumblr culture, was like being super emotionally unwell. But the good thing that came out of that was like the mental health revolution that happened, which I actively was a part of when I was a part of Sad Girls Club. But all that to say, there have been times when I know personally I have felt like, oh, I wish that like I didn't feel this way. I don't want to feel anymore. I wish I didn't feel things so deeply. No, like actually we're the lucky ones. Those of us who don't become hardened shells of a being. Because like those people are controlled by malevolent energies, entities, and expressions of existence. They have no sovereignty, and they live joyless, lackluster lives. So no wonder they experience so much SI. Any of us who've ever experienced that kind of like, especially long term, and sees no way out of it, like, and like nobody wants to be in a long-term relationship with you because you treat everyone terribly. Yeah, I feel like the logical thing to feel is SI. So, excuse me, what they do is they attach themselves to people who do experience empathy, and the more empathetic you are, the bigger heart you have, like the more of a juicy target you are to them. Especially if you've already experienced narcissistic mistreatment, because they can smell the blood in the water. One of my mentors said that before. And it's like they can notice from your characteristics, just from your energy, from your aura. I'll even say from your pheromones, bro. You might not think that it's that deep, but it is, because your hormones change when you go through long-term mistreatment. Your DNA changes from experiencing trauma. And if you don't think that changes your hormones, cortisol levels go up, your adrenals are working overtime. Yeah. And on a subconscious level, let's not forget that we are animals. We're in these primate bodies. Predators can smell it on you. Okay? So they know when they see you, you're a little hunched over, you know, not standing up straight because you maybe don't got confidence. You're kind of like hanging your head down low. Or they might just notice that you might like be a bit of a loner or whatever, and they might think that they can pick you off. I know this experience. When I was in middle school, because I was a nerd and I was very quiet, people thought that they could pick on me. This was also true in elementary school, but less so. But what they didn't know is like, I'll fight you, I don't care. So you can try it, but I'm not gonna promise that I won't like literally slap you in the face. Like, in fact, it's more probable that I will slap your face. You know what I mean? I don't do that anymore because I'm an adult, and I've talked about this on this channel before. But like, people misinterpreted like my quietness and thought that I was like, I guess reclusive maybe, because I don't know, I guess they thought that I was just gonna like, because I was submissive or docile. And the reality is, like, when I was diagnosed with autism as a child, it's because my mom, they told her that I wasn't socializing. And I was like, I didn't identify any of the other children as my friends. But the way that I remember is like, they weren't my friends. I had friends, but like, and this is how I've always been. Like, I observed who was like me and who wasn't, and I was not friends with anyone who wasn't. Like, I was not interested in anybody who I identified would not understand me and wasn't like me. And one of my gifts is being able to see, like, you know, people's Akashic records, of course, yes, but like their DNA and their energy and their aura. So I could tell, especially as a child, that kid is magical like me. I'm going to be friends with them. But if you're mundane, hell no, I'm not going to say that you're my friend. What do we have to be friends about? You know what I mean? And also, like, a little sidekick kid who's like a medium and being contacted by spirits and like fairies and angels all the time. I don't really need 3D friends. Like, my best friend was the tree in my backyard. So to me, I didn't feel like there was a problem, but they felt like there was a problem. And I let that get in my head for far too long. I let that like destroy my self-confidence and like my relationship to my authenticity for far too long. And I self-abandoned for a really long time. And this is something that's very common in neurodivergent people. But then I got to the point where I had to learn, like, there's nothing fucking wrong with me. Like, I literally have supernatural powers. Like, I'm not human. So I'm not even gonna say superhuman. Like, I have superpowers. And why the fuck would I operate like a normal person or like a quote unquote neurotypical person when I'm not that? Does everybody else fucking talk to spirits? No. So why would we behave the same way or experience life the same way? Does everybody else have prophetic dreams and like go walking into other people's dreams as a little child? No, they don't. But that's normal in my family. You know what I mean? And I had to learn that, like, what makes me special, what makes me different, what sets me apart from everybody else is what makes me unique. And what makes me unique is what makes me valuable. This has to do with Aquarius. And therefore it has to do with Uranus and Saturn. But more than anything, it has to do with the star card in tarot. Okay, who I'm talking to, you are a star, but for far too long, people saw you as prey. They saw you as weak. They saw that you were not at the middle of the herd. You were not at the center of the pack. So they decided that you were the weakest link and that they were going to come and they were going to feast on you. Okay, so you may not have been someone like me who, like, I literally kicked a kid down a hill for trying to fuck with me once, and it was a big ass hill. Like, when I was in elementary school especially, less so in middle school, but like, I still would brawl with a motherfucker if they tried to, like, if you really wanted to drag it, like, we can fight, you know what I mean? But you may not have been like me. You may not have been someone who's like, I had a lot of anger that I needed to like get out of me, and I have major Sagittarius placements, and you know, don't pick a fight with a fire sign. Don't pick a fight with a Scorpio. Like, you don't want that fucking smoke, I promise you. Especially as a kid, like uncouth, unrefined, like don't pick a fight with a little fire sign kid, because they'll bite the hell out of you. You know what I mean? But yeah, I had to learn, like, I actually don't really care about mundane people's opinions. Like, I'm not going to say that, like, I don't think that they're valuable as, like, part of creation and God's creation, but, like, we don't have anything to discuss. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not interested. And for a long time, I made the mundane world my priority, and I self-abandoned. And you may have been that way too, and you may not have been someone who could stand up for yourself. And this might be because you had like potentially narcissistic parents, or because whatever experience of being abandoned or rejected as a child, you may have been bullied at school was another thing that I was picking up. But like I said in the first part, like that I posted on TikTok, and I'm probably going to cut it together on here as well. But like I said in the first part, like, I do what I want, you do what you're told. I do what I want, you do what you have to. You know what I mean? Like, in order to be a star, let's just use celebrity as star, even though a lot of celebrities are not actually, like, they're not celestials, they're really not doing much in terms of like spiritual rank. We've talked about this. I don't know if this was something that I said on the newsletter or if I said this in my last reading. It's been a while, so I don't remember. But yeah, I feel like the people who have the highest rank are not famous right now, and like actually have been down fucking bad. Like the people, because the meek shall inherit the earth, you know. So there's that. But in order to like be a celebrity, you have to stand apart. You can't just be like everybody else. You know what I mean? I was thinking about Oppenheimer, Robert Oppenheimer. Think about Albert Einstein. Think about Nikola Tesla. They were some weird motherfuckers. Like, they were very clearly autistic. You know what I mean? Like, Oppenheimer would like lay down on the ground and like roll around. He'd just like lay down and roll around for long periods of time, which when I think about it, like, he was probably unconsciously or subconsciously like doing somatic like nervous system regulation. You know what I mean? But he probably didn't know that that's what he was doing. He may have, though. I mean, he created the fucking nuclear bombs or the atomic bombs, so he may have known. I don't know. Albert Einstein also helped to create that, and he was very clearly, like very clearly neurodivergent, specifically autistic. If you think about it as well, like, what was Yeshua's older cousin's name? The prophet who came before him. I don't remember what his name is right now, but he was so weird. He like wore like, was it that he wore dirty clothes? Even back then, he was like a real hippie, and he would like eat locusts, and I think that he wouldn't bathe and stuff. But he was even more like, he was the prophet before the prophet. Like, he was a big deal, and he had a lot of followers too. And so, you know, to be these people who like make history and stand apart, like to be a superstar, especially if you don't live in New York or LA, maybe in Atlanta, maybe in Miami, but like most people never ever will see a celebrity in real life. Never ever will see a famous person in real life unless they go to a concert. You know what I mean? And even if you live in a major city, most people are not in the same rooms as these people. Most people are not like going to the same places as these people. No, because they're set apart, right? I'm saying this as an example. You do what I do what I want, you do what you're told. By breaking free of the programming, whatever indoctrination you experienced, whether it was in the home, whether it was a community, you know, some of you definitely grew up in cults and you may not even realize it. Some of you grew up like, I'm hearing Episcopalian for whatever reason. But I'm hearing like some of you had families that like, oh, y'all were Christian, but your family was like a cult, basically. You know what I mean? And they may not have even realized it because they had been for so long doing like this, like the way that they did Christianity was very specific to them. But a lot of you that I'm picking up on, like a lot of you actually, I want to say like 70 to 80% of you, but I'm really getting 70%, like grew up in like something that was like very covertly like a cult. Which makes sense if you're from a powerful spiritual bloodline. If that's the case, you may have experienced... Ooh, my phone's on 10%. 333 on the timer. And 3333 on the timer now. Some of you may have experienced like CSA, 𝗂𝗪, and this is a byproduct of that experience. Why you experience that, it's not anything to do with you, which you may have internalized, like the abandonment, the rejection, the mistreatment that you may have experienced as a child was a byproduct of like this covert cult shit that you grew up in, okay? And by breaking free, you may have been the black sheep, and you may have been the scapegoat, and you may have been like, oh, like, I don't know why, like, it has to be me. Why do they all treat me so badly? Da 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 da. Oh, it's because I'm different. Yeah, it is because you're different, because you were meant to set them free. And a lot of people are very resistant to their own freedom. 3434 on the timer. A lot of people fucking self-sabotage all the time. Like, they have no idea. 3443. And it's 3445. A lot of people, like, subconsciously self-sabotage and entrench their imprisonment, entrench their spiritual slavery. You know what I mean? They double down on that shit. And we see this happening across the globe with people, quote unquote, voting for fascists. I don't know, we can't say anything on the internet anymore, but yeah. So Spirit is definitely saying you need to stop worrying about being on the internet and start really investing in your in-person relationships, like personal bonds. That's what's really gonna hold you down. That's what I'm hearing. Somebody, you have a family member who's coming through. They have glasses. They have silver hair. I'm seeing somebody who's very pale, which doesn't necessarily mean that they are a person of European descent. They might just be like a really light-skinned person of the global majority, or they might just be like, you know, so old that they became pale. But they're just like a very pale person. They may have been a Cancer. They may have been a Libra. Either way, this person is like, they were maybe one of your only supporters, and when they passed away, you felt like really messed up about it. And they're showing me this like really, there's like this cow in the forest in an episode of Adventure Time, and it has a bag over its udder, and when they take the bag off of the udder, it's like this terrible face, and then they're like, put it back on. they're showing me that because they want you to laugh more. They want you to enjoy yourself more. They want you to focus on that. Like, you're taking shit so seriously, and I get it because, like, there's a lot of serious shit going on. Okay, like, there's a lot of spiritual warfare, yes, but it's also like you're doing battle with your inner demons. You know what I mean? You're doing battle with the inculcation, with the indoctrination. You know, like, if you have, like, the critical parent voice in your head being like, oh, this isn't good enough, that's not good enough, you got to do this, or, like, you know, like, jealous, just anyone who was jealous of you. Because I also feel like a lot of you didn't realize why people were so mean to you. And it wasn't even because you were quote unquote weird. It was because they were jealous of you. They hated that you could be yourself and that they didn't, like, they weren't being themselves. I will also say that this is not necessarily for some of y'all, and some of y'all might have a problem with me saying this, but honestly, like, I do feel like the fae, like, people who are elvish, people who are fae, you know, a lot of us are generally what people would describe as being on the spectrum because we are supernatural beings. And fae are fae, the way that we incarnate, anywhere we incarnate, is you're just, like, extremely beautiful because you are literally divine light in a body. So even if you look super average, like, people will still like gravitate towards you and, like, be so attracted to you, and you might just be like, whoa, that's weird, but it's like, it's not actually that weird because, like, it's not on you, it's in you. This ephemeral body that you have, like, is nothing, even if you're a fucking supermodel, it's nothing compared to the beauty and the light that the ethereals, the the chosen ones, carry inside of them. And a lot of you attract these kinds of, like, vampiric people because they know that they can come to you for healing. Just your energy, just your aura, because you carry that in your energy. You carry that in your DNA. And just by being in proximity to you, just being around you. Like, also, a lot of you, people were mean to you because they were in love with you and they didn't know how to deal with that because they were immature. That's another thing. And you need to know this, and you need to accept this, and you need to understand. Like, don't just understand and know something theoretically. You need to understand. Because when you actually understand that, you will start to fucking protect yourself and stop casting your pearls before swine. When you truly comprehend intrinsically how wonderfully and fearfully you were created to serve a divine purpose on this planet, just by virtue of your existence here, you would fucking honor yourself and respect yourself and treat yourself as a precious gem. And all that love that you want to give to other people, you'd finally give it to your fucking self. And that's when you start to attract people who actually deserve your love. Because not everybody deserves to like experience your love. It's one thing to love people unconditionally, but to be in a love relationship, like circuiting that. You know what I mean? Like, you're not just keeping them alive and they're draining you because they're a parasite. Y'all are filling up one another's cups. And so what's happened is there's been the 𝗪𝗂𝗃 field integration and 222. I'm also seeing 666. Some of you, a lot of you are coming into union. You're coming into divine integration. You have already in the spirit world. If you're psychic, if you're telepathic, if you have psionic abilities, you probably have already been like interacting with them in the ethers. But like, yeah, within the next like 6 months, you will be meeting these people. And as y'all know, here in the Aetherium, the divine counterpart is not just a romantic counterpart, it's also actually your entire life. So the way that you make your money, your lifestyle. So look at your 10th house in terms of lifestyle, okay? And also look at your 7th house in terms of like partnerships. We're not just talking like, oh, my friends. No, every relationship you have needs to be a partnership, because that means that y'all are working towards the same goal. Even if the same goal is just like having a healthy relationship where y'all bring joy to one another, that's a very worthy goal, and you're still working towards that with this person. You know, that's a partner. Don't just be thinking about, oh yeah, my friend, or oh yeah, my boo, oh yeah, my cousin. No. Are they a family partner? Are they a romantic partner? Platonic? You feel me? Business, professional partner? Y'all gotta think, we gotta all think this way. And once you start thinking about that, it's like, yo, like, this person's a liability to me. You know, in this relationship, they're not able to meet me where I'm at, and I'm always going to be drained. This is where you're at. So it's a big crossroads moment for a lot of you. Whatever spiritual practice that you are a part of, I would encourage you to pray and ask for help from whoever is the keeper of the crossroads. We've been talking about portals, and Pisces is a crossroads. But these are the karmic cycles, and ask for help, ask for support, ask for guidance, clarity, patience, ease, grace, wisdom. You know, one of the best things that I ever did for myself is like for a few months, like at least 6 is what I mean by a few here. And I still do this every single day, but intentionally. I was rooting this practice for 6 months back in like early last year, 2023. But I would ask for grace and ease to be channeled through me. As if I can channel grace and ease through me, I will meet everything with grace and ease. Life doesn't have to be challenging all the time. And if you're used to chaos, life will be challenging. If you're addicted to capitalism, you might think that shit has to be challenging in order for you to get what you need and to get your needs met. If you experience deprivation, that's another thing that might lead a person to being extremely 444 on the timer, to being 4444 on the timer, extremely sensitive to rejection, because especially as a child, not getting your needs met, that's abandonment. 456 on the timer. So I think the thing that I want to end with, because I know that my phone is about to be on 5%, is like, you know, divesting from this idea that everything has to be hard just because it used to be. We're in a whole new world, and it's time for you to choose that soft life. I was telling my friend the other day, like, yo, like, living a soft life, you gotta live a soft life to live a soft life, which means I can't hustle the way that I used to hustle when I first was like trying to get it up out the mud, when I first moved to New York, and get it how I live it. And like, you know, I grew up like with my brother always putting that kind of shit in my ear, and my like, you know, watching this show called How to Make It in America, and it was just like, oh my god, like 4554 and 555 on the timer. I'm 4556, but like hustling, you know what I mean? And especially in Black culture, like hustle culture is glorified, and there are different ways to do hustle culture. But bro, I'm not hustling for shit. My ancestors did not go through literal hell and high water for me to hustle. You feel me? For me to be stressed out, for me to do nothing I don't want to fucking do. Like, they did not survive horrors unimaginable. You know what I mean? My dad didn't fucking survive horrors unimaginable. He might not know that he didn't survive that for me to have to hustle through life, but I know his higher self did not intend that for me. Right? So that all being said, we're coming into a new time, a new chapter, and breaking the karmic chain, breaking these patterns of self-mistreatment, if you will, that we picked up along the way, whether from society or from our families or what have you. And I am picking up that some of you are dealing with grief around losing a best friend. Not as many like romantic partners, but a best friend. And you may have found out that they were talking hellish shit about you, that they were gossiping about you. Some of you, but the people that I'm picking up on, like your friend had like a crush on you. And it's like a little glimmer is what I'm like picking up on. But like, yeah, I'm picking up that like you may have only picked up on it, or they may have only showed it a little bit. But I am picking up that like that little glimmer of like a crush on you was so destabilizing to their identity. I mean, it may have been that y'all are the same, it not gender, but like, I don't want to use the word, the same S. Oh my God, you can't even have a grown-up conversation anymore. But, and censorship keeps coming up. You've been censoring yourself because you learned to censor yourself. You learned to change who you were. You were taught that you were inappropriate, that you were profane, that your natural self-expression, your essence, the essence of who you are was not sacred. And the thing is, it was by people, a lot of you, many of you, it was by people, so many. Like, Spirit is saying, no, don't say it, but no, I'm going to fucking say it. Like, a lot of you, it was by people who were so fucking like, especially Christians. No shade to all my Christians out there, but especially Christians. Like, oh, like, I have a loving God. God loved us so much that, like, he sent his only begotten son. And it's like, but you're not unconditionally loving, and you're telling me that me just being exactly who I was born as is not worthy of love. You're saying that God made a mistake. So I don't know what's real to you. Is God perfect and all loving and all encompassing, or does God make trash? I just don't understand. You know what I mean? These people, they're not deep thinkers. They're not thinkers at all. They just operate from programming. They're basically automatons. I know people like to call them NPCs these days, but they're zombies, actually. Like, they are just programmed, you know, and they don't actually think consciously about the things that they say, the things that they do. They don't know why they do the shit that they do. They just do it. You ask them, why did you do that? Oh, I don't know. They'll give you some excuses, but deep down, you really grill them, it'll just be like, I don't know, that's just what we do. You know what I mean? If you really grill an NPC on like why they do the shit that they do, they will end up like blowing up because they don't have any integrity. They have no integrity. They have no sense of self and who they are. And like I said, that is a terrible life to live. Imagine being a monster. Imagine being a zombie. Imagine being a vampire. That's what it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just really want to impart on folks, like, these people are worthy of our pity rather than our rage. And it takes a lot of work to get to that place. It takes a lot of work to be able to forgive. It takes a lot of work to become unconditionally loving. And I'll tell you what, when I was healing from some serious heartbreak I experienced over this, like in the past year and a half, I wanted to hate them so badly, but because of my integrity, I had to stand in my principles and be like, as much as I fucking want to hate this person, I am choosing unconditional love. Was I feeling that at the time? Fuck no. But I chose that And now I'm over it, to be honest. But I would cry because the grief was so powerful that I felt like it would kill me. Forgiveness is not fucking easy, especially because of betrayal. And to be abandoned, especially by people who are supposed to take care of you, is a deep and thoroughgoing betrayal. And they may have been present, but if they didn't support you and show up for you the ways that they were supposed to be, that's a deep and thoroughgoing betrayal. That's what your inner child perceived it as. So, do what you want, not what you gotta do. You know what I mean? And that's how you set yourself free. That's how you live a life that's worth living. You know, one of my childhood best friends, she would ask her dad, like, why are you still spending money? Because they were in so much debt from her brother's surgeries when he was little. And he was like, as long as I live, I'm not paying off all this debt. Like, that's not even possible. So why should I suffer and live a terrible life, like, when I know I'm not even going to get out of debt? Like, why should I deprive myself? And yeah, when she told me that, that shit, like, was a paradigm shifter. That blew my mind. Like, you don't have to suffer just because your life isn't exactly where you want it to be or where you know it's going. Like, channel the frequency of joy and it will bring in more to be joyful for. And this is why gratitude lists and the frequency of gratitude is so important. When you choose to tune into gratitude, no matter what is happening around you. And let me tell you, I've been in situations where I literally have been in hell on earth. Literally. Like in hell realms. And I still would find things to be grateful for. And that's why I'm no longer in those hell realms. You know what I mean? And that's what kept me going. And that's what got me out of those situations. You find something to be joyful for and you cultivate an energy of gratitude, and then there are more things to be grateful for. You know what I mean? But that's something that capitalism steals from us, is joy and gratitude and this idea of time. You may have been feeling like there hasn't been enough time. 5, 4, 3 on the timer. Part of that is because of what's happening with Saturn. As we move closer to this vortex, as we move closer, like, time feels like it's speeding up. And like, if you have actually been tuning into mindfulness, if you have been intentionally breathing, meditating, you know, slowing down in the midst of all of this, doing your grounding exercises, then you might feel like you're really slow and everything's happening really fast, and that might cause like some dissonance and discomfort. But I promise you that you're not the one who's doing wrong there. And I'm not even saying that anything or anyone is doing wrong. It's what's happening. And actually the fact that you are finding stillness in this accelerating velocity is a testament to your divinity, honestly. I'm hearing Shaktihood. So a lot of you might identify as divine feminine, but like, you are the healer of your family. You were the medicine person of your tribe. You are the medicine. And let me just tell you something. The antidote is found in the poison. You may have been rejected because you were the thing that they did not want to see in themselves. They weren't rejecting you, they were rejecting them. And that's why they're still so fucking obsessed with you, probably. And can't let you the fuck go. But so as far as the energy for this week is concerned, like, there are more opportunities for you to choose yourself. There are more opportunities for you to choose sovereignty. There are more and that's not necessarily going to feel good. I do feel like there are spiritual attacks, which are potentially, especially powers and principalities, like I said, happening through people. And like I said, these people are fucking weak, bro. They're not self-sovereign. So who the fuck even cares, for real? You know what I mean? Like, these people are sick, and they have to resort to like the most low vibrational tactics to try to get what they want, such as emotional manipulation, lies, maybe even physical violence and shit like that. Like, no one who's sovereign has to do any of that. And I'll just encourage you, don't take your crown off. There's a lot of contention and crossroads energy coming up this week. But as long as you stay grounded in your integrity, as long as you keep breaking the motherfucking chain, as you keep breaking the wheel, as you keep liberating yourself and embodying the light in all that you do, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that's your fucking birthright, bro. And nobody can take that away from you unless you take off your crown, unless you step off of your throne. Okay, but you let these fucking jesters into your throne room. What do you think they're gonna do? Play games and make jokes? Don't let them in. Do not don't even interact, because we're coming up on Mercury retro.
Alright, my phone died, as I knew it would, but we're gonna wrap up. I'm like running behind in absolutely everything right now. Your spirit team is giving them hell on your behalf. So if these people, if you're feeling like, oh God, like, these people screwed me over, this, that, and the third, like, I want to know, is justice being served, that type of thing, know that it is, and you don't need to know what's happening to them. That's none of your business what's happening to them. Because what is actually your business is like what's happening with you. Okay?
And what's happening with you is an upgrade. What's happening with you is a coronation. You know what I mean? You had to be down bad in order to, you had to go through this dark night of the soul, as you were being stripped away of all of the spiritual detritus and low vibrational energies, entities, and expressions of existence. Because a lot of you had a lot of entity attachments to you. And that manifested as thought forms and like toxic behaviors, like self-sabotaging behaviors. You'd be like, why can't I stop doing this? Because you had an entity on you, and some of you, it's because there was like karmic, like past life attachments, like all sorts of shit that like these karmic cycles are coming to an end. As I spoke about the astrology in the beginning of this energy reading, mind you, I'm just going to put this out here. At no point did I pick up any of my decks, tarot decks. I don't even know where my fucking tarot decks are right now. Like, I do know where they are, but like, the ones that I would use for this reading, I haven't picked them up because I'm not just a tarot reader. I'm not just an astrologer. I'm an oracle. Okay? So I would encourage you, if you're trying to work with a real one, like a real healer, a real medicine person, a real high priestess, I encourage you to click the link in the description box below, head over to my Etsy, and book a self-sovereignty healing package with me. Book an oracle healing session with me. And if you want to get a little taste of what oracle healing sessions are like, obviously you can watch any of these cosmic teas, but very specifically I encourage you to tune into the videos where we do energy work together, because you can get a little taste of what that experience is like. I'd encourage you to let that energy work process through you for at least 3 days, and then you will start to notice the differences. Honestly, the first few days of like doing a session, like right after a session, might feel like super, super intense, but that's because my energy is an exorcism energy. My energy is light, which means I drive out shadows. And that means even if we don't do energy work, simply by sitting in session with me and me, working with you at all, is going to drive out shadows. And when they're surfacing to purge, especially the sentient ones, will fight their way out. So it might feel like it's getting worse before it gets better, but I would just encourage you to cleanse, drink lots of water, get lots of rest, and do not probably try not to operate heavy machinery right after a session, because you're probably going to be pretty out to lunch for the next couple of hours at least. And you might also have really strange dreams. So yeah, that all being said, I had to do my little shameless plug, and also go ahead and subscribe to the Mysteries, which is my newsletter on Substack. The premium tier is as juicy as they come, and it is the hottest esoteric tea on the market. I promise you that. So this week is a lot of changes coming through, and I feel like it's going to be in a lot of ways kind of an energetic, physical, bodily continuation of how you've been feeling. You may feel really tired, kind of low energy, kind of just not really able to show up for a ton of stuff. And it's not necessarily that you're low energy, it's that you're spiritually going through so much and so many transformations that it makes you tired, and if you're going through a Kundalini awakening, your body might feel more sensitive as more feminine energy is coursing through you, so you're more sensitive. I would encourage you to be mindful of how much external stimuli you are availing yourself of. As far as socializing, be very mindful about socializing. You're not going to have a lot of energy, so you're going to need to prioritize where you're placing that energy. And I'm looking at these butterflies on my wall. You're definitely protected. You might be getting a lot of fairy kisses is what I'm hearing. The fae may be I'm also seeing unicorns. Your life, your energy, if you've been feeling really dense and just you've been walking through hell, honestly, that's all changing. That's all changing. And I'll tell you this much. I'm not going to tell you, actually. I don't think I'm even going to. I think that's just for me, actually. But it's all changing, okay? The work has been worthwhile. And I just want to say, I wouldn't be able to go as deep and speak to this as passionately and powerfully if I hadn't been through these same experiences as well. I am so sleepy, so I'm gonna go. Actually, in terms of prosperity and money, I do what I want, you do what you're told, okay? You need to show up as a fucking boss in your life. Take the reins, take the lead. That's what the universe is waiting for you to do. But as long as you've been self-sabotaging and not self-sovereign, book a coaching package with me, baby. As long as you've been self-sabotaging and not self-sovereign, I'll tell you what, that's why the universe hasn't given you your dominion and your power, because you can't be trusted with it. So keep on showing up as a sovereign in your integrity as authentically as you possibly can in your authenticity, and you will be, in that sense, actively manifesting the twin flame union, the divine counterpart union that you've been promised, which is your whole lifestyle, every single relationship that you have, including the one to yourself and also the one to Spirit, God, you know, the Holy Spirit, the Creator, like whatever, Spirit, you know what I mean? Creative intelligence, so on and so forth, whatever it is. So, yeah, that covers it. I love you all truly and deeply. Thank you for your patience. I know I haven't posted much. I don't think I've posted to like TikTok or YouTube in honestly weeks. And I thank you for your patience, and maybe that'll change. I hope it changes. I hope that I get back to posting regularly. But yeah, I know that you guys are soul fans, so you understand. And I will see you on the flip side. Take care.